Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here and for following along the 100 Women to Watch journey. Today is a very special conversation. We're talking about alchemized, and it's not just a word, right? There's a lot more to it. However, this word was curated and brought to our attention by someone here on this panel, Dahlia. Will you please talk to us about the inspiration behind today's conversation and what this means to you?
Alchemized to me really speaks to really it's rooted in my own life. It comes from a place of understanding that there are a lot of people on the face of this earth that are hurt, that are broken, and that don't really know how to get out of the box that someone else potentially put them in. And so figuring out that everything that you have gone through is actually able to be used for your good. And the journey that comes along with that is where Alchemized fully came from. I had to learn how to turn my dirt into soil so that I could continue to bloom. And so that is the root of it all.
I mean, what a beautiful analogy with the name of a flower. Come on now. That's just too good and on brand. Thank you. And will you do us the honor of answering the first question just to kick us off, which is when you hear the word alchemized, what does it mean to you personally? And can you share a moment in your life where you're able to transform something painful or ordinary into something really powerful?
I'm a visual person. So when I hear the word alchemized, what I see is someone's ability to pick their head up. And that's a powerful thing because life in itself will do a lot of things to get you to weigh yourself down. It will, whether it uses people, whether it's situations, whether it's just lifing. There are a lot of things that can occur from childhood through adulthood that can try its best to break you. So being able to pick your head up and use those moments and find the gold thread in those moments and how you can feed off of them to make you your best you is really kind of what alchemize means to me personally. One situation, that I would say for my journey, that's a little tough. But what I can say is this: I have led a life that consists of all of the abuses.
Hmm.
And so there's not an abuse on that list that I fortunately and unfortunately have not experienced. And so while there were a lot of years that I lived in the victim world of why me, I don't understand, what I learned was that what I went through was not for me. And I'm able to use all of those stories to help other women be strong and pick their head up. If I can find the joy, if I can find the peace, if I can find the lesson in all of those situations, so can everybody else. And by doing that, it allowed me to pick my head up and be able to be a resource for others.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, what a strong statement. Absolutely. It's not for you. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Eliane?
To you, always say, right? I always say it happens for you, but it's not done to you. And I recognize that so much because I had to go and get out, go through some things early in life, lots of trauma there to understand that I was not a victim. I have, I always say I have missed the boat many times, more than three, when God offered me opportunities that I didn't want to see and I didn't want to believe, and I
Mhm.
thought I had it. I was gonna find the answer, and sorry me. So, yeah, alchemy means for me coming to the transformation of stepping in your true self and understanding. What I talk a lot about is that It is about you and not about living in the expectations of others and trying to be like everybody else and trying to fit in and trying to prove yourself and all the things that I was doing way out of my own being, so to speak.
Mhm.
That was not me. That was not me. So I think it takes a while, and I love what you said that um, the things happens that you're not mad at it. It's just that it's kind of like a what creates our wisdom in the case to be able to help others. Yeah,
Love that.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Zarel, you want to weigh in?
Um, I mean, everybody has pretty much said it. The only thing that comes to mind is, we need to really stop letting our situations define who we are as a person.
Yeah,
Because your situation is meant to build you from where you are, not define who you have to be in life. And I mean, that's pretty much all I really have to say, because everybody said something that was, very powerful. And I was telling you ladies earlier, we don't look like what we've been through.
yeah,
Sometimes the famous saying, fake it till you make it. People put on makeup, jewelry, clothes, or whatever it is to cover up whatever you're going through. It doesn't mean you're not going through something. You look good going through it, but it doesn't mean you're not going through it, and fixing yourself up, whichever way it may be, in the gym or outside of the gym, is a way of pushing yourself forward past your pain. But what do you do with it? Don't ignore it, because it will come back up. But what do you do with it? Once it happens to you, what do you do with it then?
Got it. Got it. I'm
yeah.
so curious because you've got a brand with a name here, Zarel. Is there any story that you can share from your personal life? Um,
Sorry.
I can speak to this.
Definitely. Which store are we going with today? So, I was diagnosed with lupus in '97. I was in and out of the hospital to the point my sister made a joke. She said, if somebody was missing me, she went on vacation. Every doctor knew me at every hospital, because at any point I could drop.
Mm,
And there was a point where the doctor actually told me I would die at 24, and I had just made it to my 20s. And I said, "Do you know what you're telling me?" He said, "Yes, you need to go home and deal with that." And that was after a doctor who actually gave me a medication that blew me up almost to 300 pounds. I told her, I said, "Ma'am, I've been fat. I've never been this. What is it?" She says, "Don't worry about it. You're just fat." And I tell her, no. So by the time I go back to her about 3 months later, I had stopped taking her medication. And she was like, "You look great. What did you do?" I said, "Stop taking your medication." And she looked at me like a deer in headlights, and she put on my paperwork non-compliant. So all the doctors after that treated me as such. So that doctor had saw on my paperwork, thinking that I wasn't going to listen to him anyway. He says, "You need to go home and die, or deal with however you're going to deal with that." Mind you, I had went to the doctor by myself, and I didn't know how to tell anybody. So I went through these silent struggles with no help, because I didn't know how to open my mouth and express myself. And I think that a lot of people today, they feel like they have to go through it by themselves. And in that process, they feel like they are by themselves, like they're the only one in the world who actually goes through that, when that's not true. So my struggles have been from lupus health, I mean the health and wellness field, but then even on a personal level, where I've dealt with emotional abuse and physical abuse, and being raped as a child, or well, young adult, not a child, but as a young adult, not knowing which way to turn, because people would look at you and tell you what you are. I was told that I would be very promiscuous, and that was going to be my life. So if it happened to me, I must have did something to deserve it. So I treated it as such, again,
yeah,
not knowing how to speak. you know so all of this plays in. I want to say it's called spiritual warfare. When you have a very strong calling on your life, things set you up to fail, so that you will not move any further. And on an everyday basis, there's always something there to set you up to fail, to send you spiraling on another pathway that doesn't even belong to you. And I grew up trying to understand why. So I was always the kid that asked why. And when they couldn't answer, they thought I was being the disruptive child. So I got in trouble a lot. And then I realized I can ask why. I asked God why, and He answered me why you can't. So I was very rebellious, to say the least. And I wasn't always perfect because I was a kid, of course, growing up. But the truth of the matter is, we go through so much in life, not realizing the calling we have on our life to be even stronger. That might not even be for you. What you go through might help you go through help somebody else go through something. Because what I realized when I didn't die at 24, I was ready to go home. I said, "Okay, God, we time's up. We ready to go. Let's do this." And I woke up. I said, "Okay, well, maybe the doctor was off a little bit." So I waited an entire year. And even in that year, I didn't go out anymore, and I was eating differently, trying to take these pills and medications and things like that. And in the process of doing that, people would come to me and ask me, "What are you doing?" So I helped. That's all I knew. I was like, well, maybe somebody doesn't have to go through what I went through. But everything I went through, which seemed like the entire book was thrown at me, I was able to talk somebody else through it. And I was like, well, at least I can say somebody remembered me from talking them through something. So that's when I turned all of my pain into a purpose. So I actually was like, okay, if I'm tough as nails, in Texas they said built for tough. If I'm tough as nails, then apparently I can take this lick to help somebody else out. But be careful. That can be a setup too, depending on how you take it, because you stop leaning on God when it's not your job. He just helps you along with it. So I feel my life was set up to help people, but there's a way of going about doing it. But that's only a little bit. So for me to be, I'm 47, about to be 48. Thank you, Jesus. About to be 48. I have lived 5 lifetimes with everything I've been through. And to still sit here in front of somebody to say, hey, I'm breathing, I'm smiling. It ain't always easy, but I'm here. And I'm able to help somebody else out. So I stand on that to let people know how good God is in the midst of everything. He's not what we put him in the box to be, but to also say, hey, you woke up this morning, which means you can still breathe, you still can do something. If you can get out of the bed, you can walk. If you can't get out of the bed, if I had one lady who reached out to me on social media, was complaining about doing exercises. I said, if you can move your fingers, you can do something. So, you telling me off on social media, why you not helping somebody else go through something that, they need help with? There's always a way around what you're going through. It does not have to define you. It can be a little discouraging, have your little fit, but at the same time, if you waking up, there's a reason, and that's what I take. That's what I take and push forward in. I'm
So,
sorry, that's
Zarel,
all I have to say.
I have a question for you. So, can you explain? I know it's an autoimmune disease, but what is it? What was happening to you? What were some of the systems, or what can we, no, not systems, symptoms? What can we
Symptoms.
see? Yeah,
Um,
what did you feel? How bad was it?
So lupus is an autoimmune disorder where your body literally attacks itself. So your
Yeah,
immune system is set up as a defense mechanism to fight off any foreign bacteria or anything like that, to help you stay healthy.
yeah,
Unfortunately, when you have lupus, it's when your body is confused. So therefore, all the foreign things it thinks it's his friend, and all the good stuff it thinks it's his enemy. So I had a lot of fatigue, I had a lot of swelling, I had a lot of confusion, um I had a lot of nausea, I had a lot of I even went through a couple of fake pregnancies. My belly just blew up like I was pregnant, and my body treated it as such.
yeah.
And that's traumatizing to your head. So that, on top of all the different medication that they had me on, because I was on a page and a half of medication, and when the doctor stopped listening to me, I was like, something's not right. So I stopped taking some of the medication, like winging myself off of it, and I started feeling a little bit better, because I literally had to stop taking medication even just to get to a doctor's appointment. Mind you, I'm doing this all by myself because I'm at an age where I'm in my own apartment. I'm trying to, trying to work where I can work, so on and so forth. So my body literally was trying to shut down. There was a time I was in a hospital for like 3 months, and mentally my mind was all over the place because I couldn't stop being in pain. Pain was a major factor for me. I didn't understand how how mentally it related to your pain as well as your actual pain, and not being able to tell the difference. And I had to learn that. And a lot of people still don't understand that. But it can affect your mental to where you actually thinking you're in pain when it's more or less like an anxiety attack, and it attacks your body in a different way. So I, being in that hospital for 3 months, I set up, and from my mental well-being, because I used to have a bunch of nightmares when I was in there, then my physical pain that I actually went through on a daily basis. So I had to stay drugged up. My body literally attacking from one organ to the next, attacking itself from one organ to the next, and them trying to figure out what drug to give me next to see how it was going to fix it, to the point of, I mean, is there more? To the point of just feeling like my body was going to fall apart. It went from, like, my digestive system wasn't set up right, so I would hold on to a lot of stuff. And I had to learn how to relieve myself in different ways, because the medication kept me stopped up, on top of my body already stopping itself up. So,
Mhm.
it, I hope that answered your question, but yeah, it was a lot of different symptoms in there.
Well, and I hear so many times that people are not doctors included, and people in your in your uh, family, friends, they don't take it serious, or they don't know. So
So if you
there's a
saw
lot.
somebody that looked like me and was like, well, yeah, I'm sick, would you believe them?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I had family members that did that to me too. They was like, well, you look great. I said, great. Can I have a free room? Well, you
yeah.
got to work. Work how? I'm stressed. Stress is a major factor, and there's good and bad stresses. So your body stress out too much, you're down for the
Yeah.
count. Don't even know why you can't get out the bed. And so when people would tell me how good I look, I said, well, thank you. In order to keep
Mhm.
this up, does that mean I get free room and board? Because
Yeah,
I need me a good sugar daddy right now. Just what we doing? you know, help me out. I will stay looking like this if you give me some help. We ain't got no problems, So
it's
yes,
looking at all. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you get dismissed a lot. There's a lot of good looking sick people. Not everybody's in a wheelchair. Not
Mhm.
everybody's on crutches. But at the same time, you're thinking. Unfortunately, a lot of people who have these type of diagnoses or disabilities, they get dismissed even by family and friends, because they feel like they're sometime-ish, because they might be having a day where they literally can't get out of bed, and they've made all of these plans that they've had to cancel. So it looks like you're flaky. Oh, she just don't want to come around, or she just acting funny, or just because when you're up, because you're trying to get things done. You're trying to put a smile on your face. You're trying to make yourself happy. You're trying to get it done. But then when you're down, I don't want to talk. I don't even want to get out the bed. I don't. Daylight, but to right now, it doesn't exist. you know. And I
And so
used to
for
have.
you really to bring awareness to everybody that wants to hear it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really, I am a strong advocate for all of that, not just lupus, but for any disability that comes about, or someone getting a diagnosis, to let them know
Mhm.
that, hey, you're not crazy, you're not alone, and you can keep moving.
Thank you.
If you're waking up in the morning, you have a purpose. You just you might not have found what it is. Shoot, you might be walking in it and not even realizing it.
Yeah.
And that plays a toll on you. So yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that. Walking in it and don't even know it. Oh my gosh. One of the possible reactions to stress, That's a
Yes.
big word that you share there. It may be only a few letters, but that is a big word. I'm just curious because we got a lot of stories in this space. I'm loving it. Like sitting around a campfire. Um, Dahlia posed one of these questions, which is really, really powerful question, because it starts to bring in a lot of perception, right? So the question that she has here is that it says, so often women carry limits, labels, or expectations. Goodness gracious. And I'm curious, we've got some stories to share here around one label or limitation that you've had to alchemize in your own journey. And how did, faith, either in yourself or in a higher power, really play a role in that transformation and moving forward from that point? Eliane, I have a keen interest in a story that you may have around limits, labels, or expectations. You got one? You got one that we could put some stuff on the campfire here and listen to you for?
I have a book on expectations. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, the subtitle of it is Letting Go of Expectations. It's one of the things where I feel that there are stages in life. When you're brought up, you live into this expectation frame of what your parents want for you. You know, it's all like in a good situation, they want the best for you, right? They send you to study and all that stuff. And you might not know at that point. So in your 20s and 30s, you're coming into this environment, which I always know that the 20s is really the hardest years of your life. You leave everything behind and everything is new at the same time. So you're starting to follow this group of others that you feel that these expectations are there to study or become somebody or to do something big or to get a job, get a career started. But in your 30s and 40s, it's more like family and kids, right? So you're just being the perfect mom and a housewife with the perfect mantle and the perfect picture on the mantle. And there's already so much behind that perfect picture that is not true. But it looks good, right? 3 bedroom, 2 baths, front yard, backyard, Friday night barbecues, and all the 2.5 kids running around. So you fit right in a wisteria lane, I always say. And then, really, I think in our 50s, I mean, yeah, I'm old and glad to be. 40s, 50s, you just come to this point where you hit the wall. And I did hit a wall when my child was young. I didn't have a lot of support system. My parents died early in my life. So I was by myself in my late 20s and 30s and 40s after that. Mid 30s, came to the United States, was by myself, didn't have that support. I didn't have, so and I was a late mom. I was 41 when I had my son. And so all of a sudden, I'm just finding myself really by myself and I have no clue. So I have lots of trauma. I have lots of frustration. I'm hitting the wall. My baby's crying. I have no clue what to do. I have a panic attack. The next day, I came to my senses and went through a divorce. Not fun, but that was necessary in that relationship, and started just peeling away layers. That was just another 20 years of peeling away layers of what I needed to do for myself, what I really wanted to do, who I needed to be, who I was being, what I did like and not like. Everything was hung up on the mother-in-law thing like who do I need to be perfect and fit in? And due to my trauma, which I know now, I work with clients with a lot of trauma. So due to my experience there, I think I knew that everything was just these people pleasing, perfectionism, proving myself, uh, you know, umbrellas over my head where I tried to fit in and thought that these expectations were still valid. I dropped all that. Not all of it, it's still some there. So it's a work in progress, but it's getting better to being me and living without expectations. It's not just what I think that I had to be in somebody else's expectation frame, but also then starting to put out of perfectionism and people pleasing all these expectations on myself and others. So that whole framework is really killing. It's really strangling. And so I try to let go and not put too much on other people either. And found myself as a mom, of course, at some point doing, sometimes you do the same to your kids. Like you want to be, you want to do this the best, you want the best for them, but also at the same time balancing the fact that I don't want, my son to come back later when he's 40 and say, Mom, I did it all for you. I hate my life. Right. So, and I say that out loud. Don't come back to me and hate your life because of me. So it's like, finding the balance in what you want for other people, and at the same time making that a good discussion, making it an open conversation.
How do you distinguish between expectations and what you really want from yourself? Because sometimes those things can be like so closely knit and put together that it's like, yeah.
People tell me that all the time. What if you're the Prince of Wales and you need to live in that expectation frame of the royal family? Hey, so it be, because it comes with a lot of transaction. If I have a job for somebody, I had worked in corporate environments, good and bad. If I worked in corporate environments where I got a great paycheck and the corporate culture was um, really well, it was focused on the well-being of their employees, stuff that I work on now. Then I was happy to do that transaction, and of course live in those expectations of what was, my job description and more and more and more, right? Always go beyond. But yeah, so there needs to be a healthy balance. But I think it's an awareness thing. I think you know what you're doing and you know what's being asked, and if that is a reasonable transaction, absolutely, absolutely. Can't speak for the Prince of Wales, but I think it's a reasonable transaction to some extent. But you know what I mean? There's that awareness of, am I doing it because, yeah, I make my parents happy and I love what I do anyway, so then there's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if you always feel instinctively that this is not you, you're not supposed to be there. I guess that's why people sometimes change jobs and change environments and step out of where they were because it doesn't fit the bill anymore. Yeah.
Good point. Good point. And like these are great examples, right? So that people can kind of like start to fit themselves into the story. Like, well, what if, there was this amazing job or, a place in the royal palace that was just for me as long as I, did X, Y, and Z and performed in this particular way. At what point in time do we start to start to sacrifice or strategize or compromise or, all of these things. And that brings me to Dahlia, like what does someone do if they feel stuck or bound, in some kind of way? How do they start to peel back the layers, as Elian has said, so that way they can discover, what the things are that need to go and what can stay?
That's such an interesting question because I don't necessarily believe it's a one size fits all situation. It seems to me, at least through my own journey and when I have spoken to other people, men and women, about what was that moment that they started to peel the banana, so to speak. Something happened.
Mhm.
Something in their life happened that shook them in a way that forced them to have different eyes. Uh, I know for me, I was hit with a stray bullet. And when that happened, and after years of fighting for relationships, unconsciously fighting for relationships and proving myself as best as possible that I was worthy of love, laying in a hospital, realizing that the only person that would come to see you on those last days was your child, is a wake up call. And it forces you to ask yourself, why am I investing so much in someone or those that won't even purchase a plane ticket for me? Uh, so I feel for a lot of people, something happens. But along with that something, there has to be a willingness. I think Eliane said it when she was like, there was a few different boats that came her way and she just didn't get in the boat. It was the same way for me. There were a few different, I'm sure multiple times that God was like, hello, like, do this. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't feel good. Yeah, that doesn't fit who I see myself as right now. Or I don't want to go through what it's going to take for me to become that other person right now. I don't want to deal with that pain. I don't want to look at that history. I don't want to revisit that story. And so you purposely close the door back and live in that dysfunctional comfort. And so, again, I think along with whatever the wake up is, there has to be a willingness. There has to be a letting go that you're willing to do and willing to embrace whatever that letting go looks like and whoever that letting go might affect, because it's not easy. Like, I feel like a lot of people, in order to get there, you have to go through the typical hero's journey that we all love to watch in movies, but at a certain point, that journey is real, where you're separated from everything that you know, and you have to face things that are not pleasant. In a lot of movies, those demons or those monsters are outside, but the truth is they're really a reflection of whatever is happening in you that you need to conquer. And so again, I think the biggest thing, if I can just put it down into one word, is willingness. The willingness to do, as Iyanla says, to do the work, because it is work, and it is self work. It's not looking outward and saying, well, such and such did this to me, so therefore I am. It's such and such did this to me, period. Now what will I do? Um, so to me, it's the willingness.
And even taking that responsibility, indeed.
Hmm.
Also being able to say, like, it was not that bad marriage, it was not that bad husband, it was not those two bad relationships. It was I picked it, I choose it, I stood in it, and at that time I didn't recognize it. So I agree with you. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. So, just going off what you ladies said, how do you not self-sabotage? Because you're going through and you're working and you think you're doing something, not realizing you're self-sabotaging till even after the fact for some people. So how do you not self-sabotage just moving forward, having the willingness and all of that? It's good to stay busy. Anybody can be busy, but how do you not self-sabotage?
I'm here for the
I
comments.
mean, yeah, I was going to say, for me, I don't think that you don't not self sabotage. I think that's a part of the journey and a part of how you learn.
Hmm.
You learn yourself, because those are triggers. Whatever happens that causes you to sabotage is something that you also need to address. So I feel like you have to fully embrace the whole journey. And I for me, I'll use I statements. For me, when I would self sabotage, I would probably do it 2 or 3 times before I saw the pattern, before
Mm.
I saw that, okay, maybe like, how do you keep winding up? You keep circling this same mountain. What that told me was that I was not paying attention to it the first time. That was something else that I had closed the door on, that I now needed to peel that layer back. And I think for people that have gone through real trauma, like serious trauma, you're going to self sabotage. The key is to continue to give yourself grace and pay attention to the patterns. Like, once you recognize the pattern, at that point, you are now conscious. But
Yeah.
a lot of times, like you said, you will sabotage and don't even realize it. You
Yeah.
just keep doing. You revert back to the 1.0 version of you while you're trying to get to version 2.0. But I feel that push and pull is really necessary for you to really get to know yourself and do that hard work. I feel like you won't know what the hard work is until you come against you. And that's,
Yeah.
to me, what that war is.
I agree, and I think that self-sabotage is that's also creating a lot of shame and guilt that we stay in. So we hide behind that because it's very easy to just stay into that framework of shame and guilt that, what happened to us, we will never, um, we're not going to release, we're not going to talk about it, we're not going to admit it. And sometimes it defines even our actions, our reactions, and responses to what's going around us because we don't want people to see us like that. What if they find out about this? Or what if they find out about that? Right? So we kind of stay into these patterns. And for me, that was also addiction. I've worked in the addiction recovery field for years. And that was my past as well there, just kind of hiding,
Yeah.
covering
Mm-hmm.
up a lot of that. And just maybe even already knowing, but the wisdom that I was giving in my 20s or 30s by others, I just didn't download it. I didn't want to download it for the longest time until I just had to come to my senses and go like, yeah, I can't live like this any longer.
Has anybody realized that a lot of times, even being a coach and being able to help people out there, sometimes a lot of things that they ask you and how you answer is meant for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I believe we attract our own clients. Like that's
Right.
right. Like most coaches I've met are coaching based on not on themselves, but on themselves, so to speak. Like in recruitment, is my HR brain. Say people hire themselves. It to me, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
almost the same world, somewhat, right? You're speaking life back
Life
into
into
yourself.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because I truly believe in confirmation. God speaks all the time, right? But we need confirmation from time to time, and He brings people into our life. He either has someone speak over us, no matter who it is, church or outside of church, and then sometimes He speaks through us as we're helping other people because we might not see us until it comes out of our mouth.
I do that a lot with my clients as well. I tell them a lot too. How do other people see you, and what would they say about you while
Mm,
they're really deep down under, right? So
yeah,
just kind of like step out of that framework and what do people describe you as, or how do they see you that you don't see?
right.
And yeah, I agree, Cyril, with that first because I guess we're a mess. Coaches are a mess. One it's a mess.
You
It's
had to
not
go
Love
through
that.
something. You had to go through something to understand.
And I love it when Noreen said
Talk it
on
out.
Facebook, like just
Yes,
busy, 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 hiding, hiding, hiding all the time. So thank you for those Facebook comments because it's true. We just hide behind
yeah.
busy, so we have to
Busy.
be with ourselves. Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing that I wanted to say, and it goes back to something that Jarrell said earlier, is about, and sorry, it has lost me, but Zareel said something that maybe it'll come back to me. But my answer to it was going to be that one of the reasons I love the thought process of Alchemized is because a lot of times people will, as you said, people will look at this screen, and we were not talking about this at all. People would probably look at this screen and make a huge assumption about who we are, where we are, and that we have not gone through even 10% of the stuff that has been mentioned today. And I find that a lot of times people will allow that to hold them back from moving forward. Like maybe I want to be a Zarel, but yeah, she looks like I said, she looks good. She's got it together. There's no way that she possibly had a journey that could be similar to mine, you know. And so when I've met people and I'm like, no, like, do you realize everybody has a journey? You
Mhm.
just don't see it. For a lot of people, we don't wear it like a sweater. It's a part of our journey. But I find that a lot of people will hold themselves back from the assumption that others have it all together. When in reality, like you said, like we're people that just again we finally got in the boat. We
Yeah,
got in
that
the boat
I
and we're
got
waiting
you.
for the next boat because the boat. I feel like at a certain point there's another boat coming. We're just a few boats ahead of you. It's like we're not. We were not perfect. We're just a few boats ahead of you. That's all. And we're willing to get into the next boat whenever it comes. And that's what we're just trying to pull people into.
Nice comment. Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
People's
Yeah.
colleagues. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole lot here. And yeah, thank you, Noreen. I'm just going to read it out loud. Noreen says, I have an exercise of 6 questions where I ask people to interview friends, family, or colleagues. I've done it with strangers, and it has been very enlightening. And we are not supposed to see it until they share. Very interesting, right?
Yeah.
There's so much that just happened like within the past 10 minutes, right? First of all, Dahlia just framed self-sabotage as being okay. Oh my goodness, what?
I've been heard that.
It's self-protection. Yes. It's also self-protection. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I feel like me and others that I've worked with and spoke to, I feel like the fact that we don't just embrace that whole journey is what just makes it longer than and more painful than what it needs to be.
Yeah.
Like that self-sabotage is an alarm going off. Like there's something still broken over here. There's something still broken over here. And because if we don't just say, look to the right, like, what is that? Where is that coming from? Maybe I need to dig into that. We turn to the left and say, oh, nope, okay, I'm sorry, I need to be perfect. Let me just get back on the horse, without unpacking where that is even coming from. So I am a fan of be friends with the offense and the defense, because they're both going to tell you that the full answer into who you are, and your actual healing journey. And it allows you to give yourself grace,
I
because
love that.
healing is truly a journey. It is in no way, shape, or form one or two stops. It is a journey, and it can, for some, depending on what the situation is, it can be a long journey, but it is a journey.
I really appreciate how you put that, actually, because, even in that, I've always taught to be perfect in a sense. Not perfect, but not perfect. They'll tell you, oh, you're not perfect, you make mistakes, and they'll point out all your flaws, but then they expect you to be perfect.
Mhm.
So then you end up self-sabotaging. Well, I self-sabotage with not realizing it even in the moment, and then realizing it behind after a while, but not realizing it was still good and part of the growth process.
Yeah.
I was basically raised to say mistakes are not an option. Failures are not an option. But I didn't
Oh
know
yeah.
I didn't know she spoke it out of fear, because she thought she was going to die. She was diagnosed with lupus, and they kept, telling her she was going to die. So she was trying to put us in a place where, we were succeeding at something, but not realizing how bad it was hurting, that every time I thought I was going to fail, I quit. So I would self-sabotage in a sense of not trying, not thinking that I was able to do that, second guessing myself and things like that. So coming across people who do that, is, of course, you try to talk them out of it, but the way you just said it, being a part of the process of growth, that's something to really look at, being that process of growth, of accepting every bit and piece of you, no matter what it is. And as many times as I said that, I've never thought of self-sabotage being positive. Never have I ever. But I mean, I really appreciate how you put that.
I love it too. And I love what you said about offense, defense, and
Hmm.
just the process of it, getting older and wiser. It sounds so blah, but I always wanted to say, yeah, 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 yeah. But honestly, when I was 20 or 30, in my 20s or 30s, I didn't have that frame of reference that I have now.
Hmm.
If I made my first mistake, it was my first mistake, and I didn't have a first mistake before that. So I didn't know the consequences of my actions, because, everything was a first or a last, in the sense of leaving your parents, or leaving school, or making new friends, or getting a new job. Everything is a first and last, and then you just don't know really what the consequences are for
Hmm.
yourself, and how you build that into either self-defense, or acquired wisdom, so to speak, right? A lot
Right.
of these self-defense mechanisms are coping skills just to get through
Hmm.
the
They
next.
really are. I agree. Coping skills. I mean, we build them up any way we can, whether it's from your family, friends, or TV. I
And
mean,
they're negative and positive, right? So the negative
and
coping
positive.
skills, drinking or using or abusing, and the other ones are like, yeah, so I have acquired some coping skills to get through my stress or anxiety, or yeah, yeah,
As they say nowadays, the women, they have a glass of wine. That coping skill. It's okay. Give me my wine and then talk to me. It's like it's we have a moment, but yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
incredible, what happens up here. I don't even know if it's happening up here. That something that we can point to, and the fact that we can start to name these things helps it
Mhm,
become a little bit, tangible and more manageable.
mhm.
Whereas some people don't have words, for what it is that they're experiencing. Maybe they're in a weird dynamic, but they have no name for it, so they can't talk about it. Right.
Right.
And what you're doing here is you're giving people, as they're listening to this conversation, tools to be able to start dealing and start having more awareness and start, articulating what is going on so that they can create change. So this is a really powerful conversation in a lot of different ways. And it's that time where I've got one more question for you, which is, and you may have shared some already, got that. And what we're doing is we're going to synthesize this for the people who might be hopping on, who are just catching the last couple of minutes. What would be the one takeaway that you would want them to have? Maybe it's an action step that they can take, to begin their own process of alchemizing their story. But from this conversation, there's so much. As you answer that question, can you also share where people can find you online, just in case they want to reach out and say hey and thank you for your words? Zarel, you want to lead us off?
I guess so. I want people to really realize, whether you diagnose yourself or somebody else diagnose you, regardless of how you may see yourself, it does not have to define you. You are here for a purpose, a reason, and your purpose, whether you're walking in it or not, is to find that purpose or recognize the purpose that you might already be walking in. So your diagnosis is not your identity. And I do have a book out on Amazon called Just That. That's my second book. You can find me as Zarel Gibson, CEO, on all platforms.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your words, for your wisdom, for being here, your presence. Even just the way that you tell your story, like you're not held down by it. So being able to just talk about, what has happened in the way that you do is just some fire, really empowering.
I can say God has made me a waterfall, because I used to stay silent. And then when I wasn't silent, he said, okay, well, I'm going to let it all come out. So usually when I open my mouth, there it is. There's literally, because holding back, it was like, well, God does not have, he has the key. So it just comes out. So which helped me move into being a disability life coach, to be able to help everybody else out, because it lets them know they're not alone.
Thank you. Disability life coach. Love that. Eliane, will you be so kind as to share, what is a takeaway that you would like for someone to get from this conversation from you, or maybe you can share an action to help them take the first step on their journey of alchemizing their story?
Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, my words of wisdom: laugh a lot, and laugh it off, and laugh it away. You got to have a good sense of humor about yourself at some point, right? And with that comes my quote. That is from my book. It is, life does not get any easier, but you get better at it. And that's just my thing, right? It is true. I mean, life doesn't get any easier, so life is not happening to you all the time. You just get better at it and handling it and dealing with it. And that's a really nice journey. It's a really amazing journey. Everybody can find me, alienhan.net. alienhan.net.
Nice. You made it easy for us to find you.
.net.
Thank you. Dahlia, I'm going to ask you the same question, and with a little caveat here, we put a little cherry on top of this conversation, is how was this for you? Was it what we talked about expectations in the beginning? Was this conversation what you expected? Are you getting from this what you wanted to cultivate here? Can you talk to us about both of those?
Absolutely. So answering the last question, absolutely. As I said, it's one of the things that's just really important for me, and that I feel like my soul is really tied to, is helping people see that everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And I remember being the little girl, the young lady, the grown woman who felt like I just could not do it. The record player, or the record of old words, old beliefs, old seeds that had been planted, was the constant tune that was in my mind. And so when I started to come out of that, and that's when I started really looking around and finding out that I have my story true, but so does Zarel, so does Eliane. Like, everybody actually has a story, and most people that you speak with are going to have a story that has something that occurred in it that was not fruits and berries. It was something that potentially was a mountain moment, where they could have just did a full about face and said, never mind, I'm just going to settle here. And they chose to climb the mountain. And that's really what I wanted to really express today, is that it's possible to take whatever you've gone through and find strength in it. What is something that I would like for people to really take away is to love both sides of yourself. You are your fears and you are your power. You know, you are your smiles, but you are also your tears. And when we start to hate one side of it or avoid one side of it, we're actually avoiding a piece of ourselves. If you embrace it all and learn how to just become friends with the yin and the yang, that is when you're fully able to take all of your story and make I'm sorry, and make a gumbo. That was what popped in my head, so that's what I was saying. And make a really tasty gumbo, because it's all you, and there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you or your story. Where can you find me? I am Dahlia Cummings across all platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, um, Instagram. The only platform that has a different name is my YouTube channel, which is Alchemized, named after the podcast. So, other than that, Dahlia Cummings.
Look at us all getting together and making a change here, right? Because yeah, stories are great, and sometimes people think that they exist in a vacuum. And look at all of our stories together in this space, right? There's different lenses for what adversity looks like. There's different mountain moments. I love that phrase, Dahlia. That was awesome, right? There's different ways to create awareness, and to have a revelation of what am I doing, who am I being. So there's so many different aspects of the journey that we have discovered here together, and I cannot thank each of you enough for contributing to this gumbo. Thank you again, Dahlia, that we've cooked up here together. And thank you, the person who's watching, for also contributing to the conversation, right? Maybe you shared some words. Hey, Noreen. And maybe you're just here observing, but it's not a just. Like, that's also part of the gumbo. So with that, feel free to reach out to any one of these amazing women who have contributed today, and continue your journey in the way that you can. You've got support. You've got them for support, and also you've got you. So wishing everyone a fantastic and amazing day, and see you on the next live stream.
Thank you.